CommonCampus is a new typology for school developed by students from the University of Technology, Sydney AfterSchool Masters Studio.
18 students participated in this studio, with each developing 5 sites for learning embedded in the community of Epping. Some of the sites were learning hubs, which acted as home bases for cohorts of students of different stages and ages from a range of different educational systems. Others were learning nodes, which were community and industry-owned facilities, such as libraries and local businesses that offer opportunities for specialist learning programs.
Each student developed a persona to act as their muse to explore their propositions. So now we're going to explore CommonCampus through a day in the life of 6 of these characters.
Meet Damien Lucia. He's 9 years old and loves to make things, paint, read and play soccer. And this is his mum Caroline, a 30-year-old exhibition designer. She also teaches design and fabrication at the CommonCampus Makerspace.
Meet Brony. He's 15, loves basketball and loves to listen to electronic dance music. He can be a handful, but when he's engaged in what he's passionate about, he disappears into his own world.
Meet Kevin. He's a 49-year-old teacher. Kevin is passionate about experiencing new things and food. He loves bringing real-world experiences into his mobile teaching practice, where he teaches at various learning nodes.
Meet Mrs. Chen. She's a creative and curious retired high school teacher who has recently moved to Sydney from Shanghai to support her daughter and grandchildren. She volunteers at CommonCampus.
And this is Tiffany. She is 6 years old and spends half the week with her mum and half the week with her dad. She is really cheerful and happy, although sometimes she can be a bit grumpy.
Today is a particularly beautiful and sunny morning in Epping.
Damien and Caroline walk to their learning and work hub, located at CommonCampus. Damien's learning hub is in fact at the same place where Caroline works, which makes it super convenient. Damien's learning hub is part of a learning community where people of all ages can work, learn and play. When they get there, Damien joins his friends playing soccer in the grounds,
while Caroline pops upstairs to the co-work hub, which she shares with a range of creatives.
When class starts for the day, Damien heads to the living room space and scans the app on his phone upon entry. Inspired by MasterChef, Damien and his friends have decided to create a recipe book, which involves researching foods from different cultures, designing the book, calculating the cost to print, and then selling the book. Proceeds from the book's purchases support the work of OzHarvest, a food rescue organisation. After an hour of researching, Damien realises he needs to get some ingredients to trial a recipe he's been making for lunch that day. He pops into the herb garden to get some chives he planted a few weeks ago. He and his friends then head to the shopfront space, as today a local graphic designer is going to work with them on their book designs. He's never used Adobe InDesign before, and enjoys playing the different sorts of templates. At the end of the session, he says bye to his friends and checks out the app. They're all going to different learning nodes to develop different sections of the book. He's signed up for a 4-week course on Chinese food, and today they're making dumplings. He heads up the road to KGN, the kitchen garden node. He signs in and heads to a workbench where he sees his friend Gal, who is from a different learning hub. Today, a celebrity chef is running a dumpling lesson. Damien gets chives from his bag and puts them on the bench, where the other ingredients have already been laid out.
At the next workbench, Mrs. Chen is there with her grandchildren, 6-year-old twins, Holly and Alexander, and a few other younger children. Today, Mrs. Chen is volunteering at CommonCampus and is helping the children. She'll also be walking some of the students to another learning node after this lesson. Wrapping the dumplings is quite tricky, although Damien and Gal eventually manage to master it.
The fun thing about the kitchen garden node is that it's set up like a little restaurant, and each day a limited number of tickets are sold through the CommonCampus app for lunch and dinner. Today, Caroline got a ticket, and so did Kevin, one of the CommonCampus teachers. Once the dumplings are cooked, Damien and Gal sit at the amphitheatre with Caroline and Kevin to eat lunch. Delicious. Kevin tells them they're just as good as the dumplings from Shanghai, where he is from.
After lunch, Damien says bye to Gal and his mum and walks with Mrs. Chen and her grandchildren to the Life Cycle node, where a temporary learning space has been set up in a local cemetery. A number of elderly volunteers from a range of different cultural backgrounds are here to help with the programs being held that day.
Students sign in and report to the engagement curator. He then gets them into groups to explore different parts of the cemetery to understand which ethnicities are represented and from which periods in history. In Damien's group, there are some kids from his learning hub and also others from other hubs. They regroup in the node to discuss what they found, and Mrs. Chen speaks to a small group about some of the foods that she was exposed to as a child in China. Damien is fascinated and thinks that the recipe book should have a section on food with healing properties.
In another part of the cemetery, Tiffany is working with her friend Akina Rose. They've come from the Robot Hub, where they've been coding all morning on the development of an artificial intelligence game around family trees. Their coding teacher thought they needed to put a bit more investigation into character development and that they needed a break outside. Their volunteer, Margaret, walked them to the cemetery, and together they've been reading the tombstones and trying to imagine what people's lives were like in the past.
Today, Damien's timetable shows that he's got a class at the Environmental Research Centre. He hops on the CC shuttle, and on board he sees his friends and his home-based teachers. His whole class are heading there to learn about pH levels in water and the impact this has on food. Damien loves going to the research centre and meeting scientists in their white lab coats.
What a surprise! Near where the shuttle stops, he sees Kevin working with a group of older students outside one of the labs. Kevin is a mobile teacher, so he drives his mobile teaching pod to places where he can offer learning opportunities. Damien hears Kevin talking about developing alternate energy sources. As he walks past, Kevin gives Damien a wave.
When Tiffany and Akina Rose get back to their robot hub, they see Brony and a group of older students testing some robots in the forum space. It looks super cool, and now they can't wait until they're able to learn how to build robots. They get back into their AI game project with newfound enthusiasm around some of the characters they developed at the cemetery node. They happily talk to their teacher about their ideas and continue to work away until Tiffany's mum comes to collect her.
On Tuesdays, Brony's day doesn't start until after lunch. It's a good thing as he's up late on Monday nights playing in the local basketball tournament. Brony and his friends are trying to create a dancing robot performance. They've managed to program in a range of moves now, but they still need to sort the music out. Next, they're going to collaborate with some students from the music node to compose some music for this. The music node is awesome, with specialist rooms that highlight the different sounds of different instruments. He can imagine the soundtrack to the robot performance to be quite electronic and quite airy, and he can't wait to work with the music students to compose this.
On their way to the music node, they walk past the park, where an awesome-looking makerspace has been set up. Brony has been there a few times on weekends to tinker on projects. They hear some really weird, ghoulish sounds as they walk past and see a group of people creating objects that capture wind. They think that these would be awesome as a sound effect in their composition. This is the group that Kevin has been working with to develop alternative energy sources. Brony hovers near the edge, listening and watching. Kevin sees that he is curious and invites him closer to see the wind-powered amplifiers the students are creating. Brony tells Kevin that he likes the screechy sounds from the wind generator and asks if he can record some of them. Kevin tells Brony to go ahead. As he wanders around the different wind generator, he thinks the student work is super interesting, and he asks Kevin if he can do one of his courses sometime. And Kevin shows him the link to the courses he teaches on the app.
It's now late afternoon, and as the students hone their wind generators, the music from the amplifiers gets louder and louder. The makerspace is a hive of activity, with learners of all ages creating, tinkering, and testing projects both inside and outside the facilities. As the sun begins to set, Damien and Caroline walk past on their way home. Damien is animatedly chatting about what he learned about pH levels at the environmental lab, and now he wants to add a section into the recipe book on molecular gastronomy. They hear the music coming out of the wind-generated amplifiers. What a weird song, Damien thinks. He wonders what century it was written in, because that's nothing like CommonCampus.
Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. We don't